Welcome back to another Stunt Culture Fast Track Guide. Today we're going to be showing you guys the Arabian. You're back with Cody and
Jackson. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're going to be touching base on the Arabian.
Both standing Arabian and the running Arabian. So the progressions are slightly different, so we'll go through a few of them. We'll start with some of the progressions for the standing Arabian, but it can be used for both. For each progression, we're going to try and give you an exercise that will help as well, because some of these progressions you may get stuck on. So,
Half-turn box jump up
yep.
first.
So first one, before you even do this on the boxes, what I want you to think about doing is you're going to be swinging all the way up next to your ears and jumping, making sure that you're driving through your toes, using your calves to really get that pop. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a half turn. For the first few that you do, the way that I want you to get the half turn is I want you to swing all the way up to your ears. I want you to turn your outside hand. So whichever way you're spinning, whether it's left or right, you're going to turn that hand so it faces the wall. And you're going to think about just still keeping nice and hollow, keeping your shoulders in. I don't want you to open your shoulder too much yet. And then I want you to think about pulling your chin to your shoulder or to your armpit. So it's just going to be up and here, and make sure that you stay tight. So it's just a jump, turn. You'll see on that one, I even spun more than half, and I'm not even trying to spin yet, because just this position here, as long as you're in that correct position and you turn that hand, your whole body's going to flow through if you stay tight. So it's here and turn.
Too much.
So again, yeah, too much. So now do that a few times, make sure you're comfortable with that and you're at least getting that half spin. And then we're gonna set up a couple of boxes. So we've got a couple of mats here. I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna sit in front of it, swing up, use that same turn. Still getting too much spin. You'll find that it's very, very easy to spin if you think about staying tight and just turning that hand.
A good thing to think about when you're doing this is to spot. So especially when you're doing the Arabian and get further down the line and through the progressions, you do want to be coming up through spotting before you initiate the front flip. It's part of the skill. So when you're doing this half-turn box jump, make sure that when you come up, try and spot the direction that you're going to end up facing, so it'll help you stop. Even then, I still overspun with that spot. So it is very easy to do and overdo, so just be mindful of that.
Cool. So yeah, set up a couple of mats. Start to increase the height of the mats, because you're gonna need quite a bit of height to land this. So at the moment, I've only got 2 mats here, probably about 60 centimeters or so. You want to get to like a meter or even over a meter if you can before you progress. If you're struggling with that, one of the exercises that's good is just your general box jumps. So I've got another mat stacked up that's a bit higher here. When you do it, I want you to try and keep your feet together. So it's not like how you would normally start with your feet apart, landing with your feet apart in a squat. Because when you're doing this, you want everything to be squeezed. So when you do these box jumps, feet together, jumping all the way up, swinging up nice and high. Same thing, just keep making it higher and higher. You want a decent jump for either the standing Arabian. So keep stacking it till it's at least a meter, even like 1.2, 1.3 meters.
Depending on how tall you are, obviously.
All right, so the second progression we'll go over.
Half-turn dive roll. So I'm going to use these mats that we have stacked up here. So I'm going to start my arms up. I'm going to bend my legs. I'm going to extend through my toes, reach with my arms, squeeze my core nice and tight. I turn to the right, Cody turns to the left, so if that's a little bit confusing, just to let you know. Turn my hand out, same as the half-turn box jump, but as I go over, I'm gonna reach for the floor, squeeze my core, drive my hips and my heels up behind me, press through and dive roll. So I'll show you that now. One more time.
What we're gonna do for that is we're gonna do the dish to Superman rolls, because it's important that when you're doing these Arabians, same as like any spinning, when you spin, you want to make sure that everything's connected at spinning at the same time. So it's actually not very hard to spin, and you don't need a lot of height to spin if everything is in time. So spinning is a lot about timing, really. So what you're going to do is laying on your back, going to get into a dish position. So when you're doing this, make sure that you're squeezing through your core, thinking about pushing your lower back in the ground. You don't want to have that arch through your back. You want your back to stay on the ground the whole time. You're going to bring your legs up, arms up next to your ears. If you find that you're arching, then what you can do is just either bring your arms down so that you don't have that arch, or bring your legs up a little bit higher. because that's the most important thing with this, is that we don't want that arch. It just means that you need to work on your dish a little bit more. But what you're going to do is, starting in a dish position, in this position here, you're going to think about driving your toes and your hips and your shoulder over, rolling into a Superman position here. From here, keeping your arms, shoulders and legs off the ground, and then you're going to roll back. So you're just going to practice this. I would do this 10 times, at least 3 sets, and I would keep doing this until you're completely comfortable and you can roll over instantly without getting stuck. Because you'll find at first when you do it, you go to roll and you're getting stuck. So you want that fluid movement the whole way through the roll. So from there, we'll go to the third progression, which is the half turn up to the handstand position.
This one is a little bit tricky, so we'll see how it goes. To start off with, before you start doing the half turn jump into the handstand press, I recommend that before you even start the Arabian tutorial, I recommend doing the front somersault or front flip tutorial, figuring that out. Just the first half of the Arabian is a really tall half turn, squeezing shape, and then the second half of it is a front flip. So it is good.
That would be one of the prerequisites, is that you have that front flip before even attempting this Arabian. So if you're starting to learn the Arabian and you haven't mastered that front flip yet, make sure you go back and you do that and you're completely comfortable with it.
This is another prerequisite drill before doing the half turn handstand. Okay, just the press handstand, but you're pushing through your toes, and you can have a little bounce. You've got sprung floor, use it. So a little bounce, press, and then just get into that motion of driving your hips up over the back and squeezing your tummy in as tight as you can. So now I'm going to press all the way up, I'm going to pike, and then I'm just going to like flat back or roll out of it. Good, so once you've got that down pat, we're going to incorporate that swing. So you're going to start, bend, big swing, just like the half turn box jump. Then you're going to go up, you're going to drive your hips up behind you, pull your tummy in, squeeze your core, press and roll, and like press up to that handstand.
It's really important with this one that you think about driving up through your hips so that you have that momentum getting your hips over, because if you're trying to throw everything straight down and throw your hands and your head straight down and get into a ball straight away, you're not going to get that hip drive to get you over to give you that flip. So as you come into it, really think about driving your hip and your glutes up to the ceiling as hard as you can.
So I've kind of set this up for the roundoff or handspring, but I do like to, whenever I teach the Arabian, I like to go through it standing, so you get a little bit more of an understanding of like where to put your body. Because if you don't have that know-how on like from a standstill, when you have all that momentum from a roundoff or a handspring, sometimes it can go a bit skew. So making sure that everything is really square and in line and not going off to the side when you're doing it standing will really help you progress through to doing a roundoff Arabian or like a roundoff handspring Arabian.
So with that progression, a lot of people get stuck on that forward momentum and actually learning to drive their hips over. So I'm going to give you a couple of variations of an exercise that you can work on to try and achieve that. Like Jackson showed you before, simply just keeping your arms straight and just punching and think about driving your hips and your glute up. You don't even have to go over yet, but just thinking about punching, driving up. Because for a lot of people at first, they just drive straight down and they don't get that drive up through their hips and their glutes. So the other exercises you can do to practice getting that hip drive is just either like a pike through or tuck through into the handstand. So when you do this, try and get your feet as close to your hands as you can and think about keeping your legs as straight as you can. I'm unfortunately not very flexible, so mine are slightly bent. But what you want to think about doing is leaning over your shoulders, and you're thinking about driving your hips over your shoulders. So from here, what a lot of people do at first is they'll kick their heels up and it will actually stop them from coming over. So you want to think about popping up. Cool, and just keep going bit by bit. You want to get to that point where you feel like you're going to rotate over and then up to the handstand. Cool, so you try and get comfortable with that so you know what it feels like to drive your hips and your glutes over.
Again, just touching base on that prerequisite, the front flip will help you do all of this. Getting that like hip drive and that lift through your core is really essential in the Arabian, because a lot of people go up and then they get stuck because they like bring their feet in rather than driving their hips and their stomach up and over. So right now we're going to do a standing half turn press dive roll. So it's the same as a handstand, except instead of like trying to press and stall through that shape, I'm going to like continue straight through the dive roll, trying to get that momentum going. Again, making sure you're extending as tall as you can through that first set, really squeezing your core and squeezing your glutes. Whenever you press through the floor for any skill, tuck, punch front, layout, full, double, whatever you're doing, as soon as you extend through your toes, squeeze your bum, squeeze your glutes, engage them, squeeze your core. Getting those lines through your tumbling will help you with power, speed, awareness, all of it.
And
really
most people they try to squeeze their glutes after they've already left the ground. Once it's that point, it's too late. You need to be squeezing at that point of impact when you're lifting and coming off the ground to actually have that power out of it.
So I'll show you this one more time.
Make sure you're spotting as you come over so that you know exactly where you are. You want to have as much awareness through the skill as possible. You don't want to just be guessing and relying on timing. Another exercise we're going to give you is just to work on that core strength. It's not going to help with that hip drive as much as the last exercises that we gave you, but it will help with that snap and getting into that tuck position. So you can either do it as a V snap or a tuck crunch. So I'll show you both of them. I'll show you the tuck crunch first. So I still want you to start in this disc position, making sure your lower back is against the ground, squeezing your core, pushing through your core. From here, you're going to think about snapping up to a tuck position and then back down to a dish. Snapping, back down. So when you're doing this, we're working on that speed, okay? So it's here, snap, and then back. Snap up, back.
That explosive power is so essential through tumbling. There's a lot of people that I've personally worked with over the years that have like really good strength. Like I could put weights on them and they could do like those crunches or leg raises. But having that speed and that explosive energy behind the actual exercise is what really helps with the tumbling skills. Now that we've done all those progressions, I'm going to commit through to the pull. So I'm going to reach up, I'm going to come over like the dive roll, and I'm going to commit to squeezing my core in, pulling my knees in as tight as I can, and I'm going to try and flip as tight as I can, hopefully aiming to get to my bottom around here. If I can get to my bum here, doing it on the floor should be no dramas. Good. Just aiming to get over to your bum. It's quite high, so like don't expect to get your feet. If you can get up to your feet, standing up on a surface this high, killing the game, absolutely killing the game.
Stay in that tucked position so that as you do land, even if you land on your butt a bit, if you stay tucked, you're going to roll to your feet and be able to stand up. You just want to exaggerate holding a little bit too long rather than getting in the habit already of opening too early.
Also, if I was to open up, if I was to get to here and then second guess myself and open up, first thing that's going to hit the mat, my forehead. And we don't need to mess this up any more than it already is.
Better off just to stay tucked. All right, so I didn't get to show you that other variation of the tuck crunch yet, which is just the V snap. So you're still going to start in that same position, laying down. So you're in a dish, but now you're bringing everything up together. So it's going to require a little bit more core strength. If you're finding those tuck crunches too easy, then work on these because it's going to help with that Arabian. If you start to open the Arabian out a little bit, you're still going to know you're still going to have the strength to give yourself that rotation through the Arabian. So from here, snap and back down. You can see when I do this, I'm working on speed and then holding that position as I come back out of it. So this is more about that speed and control rather than just pumping out reps.
We're going to do the standing Arabian now. I'm going to commit through the exact same things what I just did up onto the mat, but because it's on the floor now, should have all that extra room to land. The only thing I need to think about doing is engaging my core, squeezing my glutes, and opening up my body so I can like stand, but not abruptly to like a straight shape, because then you'll end up doing a knee. You don't want that. You really want like soft, nice landing, absorbing through your legs. Your typical motorbike check. These can be a little bit tricky to spot, so you really want to be really confident in doing them, or have someone that's really confident in spotting. Just the way that they turn through, you have to spot them like a front somersault, but with the half turn, if you sketchy with your arms.
Just make sure that if there is someone there spotting you, they know what they're doing, because this is one of the hardest skills to spot.
One more time for you guys. I'm coming around the side of fraction. Standing Arabians are a little bit tricky, so I'm going to try and like extend up through my arms a little bit more, try and square off so it is a bit straighter. And that's the Standing Arabian. So now we move on to doing all of those same progressions that we just did out of a round-off.
Before we do that, I'm going to show you one more exercise. If you guys are getting stuck and you keep landing short, without seeing what you're doing, it's hard to know exactly, but for a lot of people, they don't have that fast snap up, so they don't have that lift into it, and that fast snap and stop actually helps with your rotation as well. So that's probably one of the most common things I've seen, is that they don't have that. So this exercise, front delt raises, is going to help with that. When you're doing this, you're thinking about snapping up fast, still staying hollow, squeezing your core, squeezing your glutes, legs, keeping your hands in front a bit. I don't want you to arch your back or lean over. So from here, staying nice and tight, squeezing, snap up, slow on the way back down. So you're gonna snap, slow. We'll do that one more time. Snap, slow. Just make sure your back doesn't arch. That's one of the most common things with this.
I stitched Cody up then. I gave him the purple.
He gave me the other hand.
I saw him put it around 1 foot and I was like, what's he doing? Oh. All right, so now we're going to take all those same progressions that we just worked on and we're going to add a round off in front of them, fast track you through them. It's the same thing through all of those shapes. You're still getting to here. The only variation is how much momentum you have going into the skill and where you place your toes, like whether they're behind you, under you. Just depending on what you're using the Arabian for, we'll go over that. I'm gonna head back there. All right, so now that's a cool magic trick, by the way, James, good job. I'm gonna do the round off, half turn, box jump, kind of rebound, if you would. I'll show you that now. Squeeze. Making sure that you're leaving your toes behind you for this so that you can actually go up. If your toes come under, you'll shoot back, roll off the end and smack your bum on the ground. But I haven't experienced that because I understand. Now we're going to round off, rebound, half turn, dive roll. This one's a little bit scary if you have a lot of power. So just really dial it back, slow the round off down, control, stand up tall, reach, spot, do dive roll. Moving on. Now we're back doing round off, half turn, press handstand. And then I'll probably just flat back or roll out of it. Trying to hold that handstand, try and get a bit of better shape than me. I'm a bit rusty, I haven't done this in a little while. I think I did this drill, what, 2014 when I learnt my Arabians. This time I'm going to continue all the way through to that dive roll again. I'm going to try not to press through. My hands will touch a little bit, but I'm not going to hold through that handstand shape. Now I'm going to continue the flip all the way through my bum, or my feet, depending on how much of a punch I get. Be sure to engage your core and squeeze your glutes on takeoff. Right up as tall as you can. Don't come around the side and don't over hollow when you turn. You do need to be straight so that your turn can come through nice and square. So now we're going to go all the way through to the Arabian. Not going to put my hands down, I'm going to compress through my core, squeeze my glutes. Arms up tall in the takeoff. These mats are a little bit low for me. I have a little bit more height, so if I do open up, it's just so I don't roll off the end. So I'll show you now. So it's a little bit low, so I do end up standing up, especially coming down the wedge. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move this wedge, stack one mat down and try the Arabian. Same thing as when the wedge is there, stand up tall, squeeze glutes, squeeze core, stretch tall, reach around, come through, compress through my stomach, squeeze my bum. That's all it takes. Those steps will all come together and you get a nice flowing Arabian. Alright, now I'm going to do it without the mat. I'm going to try and stand up as tall as I can so I don't want a lot of forward momentum coming out of it. So I'll leave my toes behind me in the round off so I can go up a little bit higher. . 1,
So just remember, if you're getting stuck with any of these progressions, make sure you go through some of those exercises, because it's just as important to do those exercises and to have the correct strength as it is to go through the technique and the drills. Let us know in the comments below what skill you'd like us to teach next. But thanks for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Like, subscribe, and comment.